I am expanding on the existing methods of engagement with marginalised and hard to reach communities to involve South Asian women in the forming of a new housing and neighbourhood plan in Leicester. Leicester has one of the lowest rates of residents who identify themselves as white British at 45%, and the highest proportion of British Indians at 28.3%. The site I am currently looking at is within Leicester's Spinney Hills and North Evington wards, where there are a large cluster of the Indian ethnic group. The Spence Street site is one of 74 non-strategic sites outlined to provide 1,486 new homes in the 2020 local draft plan. It is situated just outside of the city centre, which has been marked as a central development area. The site falls into the densely populated South Asian neighbourhood around two high streets, Green Lane Road and East Park Road, and also happens to be my local area. So you may be thinking, why South Asian women in Leicester? Because speaking from personal experience and seeing the females in my family and surroundings continuously compromise in terms of who gets the hot food, who eats first, who gets time to go out for their personal enjoyment, who is coming home to be served as opposed to work, who has the leisure of waiting till the food is cooked, it has driven me insane. Using my own experience as well as fellow South Asian homemakers in my area, I know that these issues are common within this group. Homemakers spend the majority of their time in and around their homes and neighbourhoods. If the top-down approach favours money and travel, I believe it's important to provide these women with the support and knowledge so that they can both contribute to the improvement of their localities as well as benefit from this improvement. They can't change what they don't know can be changed. My work so far has taken a variety of approaches to both understand the current adaptation of vernacular British architecture at the same time as developing relationships and communities to start to open up the conversation to South Asian women. Taking an auto-ethnographical and situationist approach, having recently moved back to Leicester due to the lockdown, inspired by the psychogeographic maps by Larissa Fassler, I have been taking notes through watching back recordings of walks alone and with women in the area to objectively observe the site. Counting, listening, following. Looking at the temple was a way to expand my knowledge of wider Indian culture and specific adaptations of vernacular British architecture by Indian immigrants. It highlighted the importance of inclusion and flexibility for migrant groups within the homes and neighbourhoods, with the temple being a transitional object that carried emigrated culture and community within it. Homemakers' adaptation to their culture and gendered duties subconsciously dictate their engagement with their homes and neighbourhoods. Religious rituals meant ad hoc adaptations to existing spaces, and cultural, gendered norms create physical relationships to both domestic and public space. To interrogate these cultural and gendered norms, I worked with a social innovation student and interviewed South Asian women about their cultural experience and daily rituals. It highlighted internal dialogues, most of which favoured learned helplessness and having a lack of a positive and encouraging environment, which in turn repeats and trickles down to the next generation. This culture intertwines with many aspects of their engagement with their neighbourhood. For example, having everything nearby is freeing because it's familiar and therefore safe, and limiting because they do not need to experience new environments unless working. Being tied down by family duties that their culture has embedded in them as being the most important thing limits their free time. Fear of judgment and guilt from society limits their experience and curiosity. Working with Benoli using a range of social innovation research methods such as empathy mapping and how might we exercises, we gathered insights to set up workshops to create a community of homemakers to measure progress in terms of self-efficacy, something that detached them further from engaging with new and unfamiliar topics. The workshops bring together first and second generation Indian women and Indian immigrant women to share skills, craft, discuss, and learn from each other. Slowly, these women have begun to share their skills and host sessions. The importance of having a trusting and supportive community of South Asian homemakers when it comes to bottom-up planning is shown in the Bangladeshi group who worked with Matrix to design the Jagannaри Centre. The women's perspectives and experience were essential in creating a safe and useful space for their community. Two community projects within my placement with the Bromley by Bow Centre, called Time Banking and Communities Driving Change, inspired the workshop structure and ethos. Everyone has a skill they can share and everyone can learn. Due to lockdown, I wasn't able to visit them, though the majority of my time was spent working on a research project with UCL called Act Early, focusing on how to give children the best start in life. I worked on looking at ways of gathering locals' thoughts without a clipboard and survey, specifically developing strategies to include the Bangladeshi female community. In an attempt to open up the conversation and encourage reflection, summaries of the previous interviews were put into quotes and stenciled around Bromley by Bow Centre and Leicester using Rangoli. Rangoli is a South Asian art form also known as Alpana. Both the Bangladeshi community around Bromley by Bow Centre as well as Indians in Leicester know of this powder or paste. Rangoli is used in Hindu culture on the angan or front porch to invite God into your home, and in Bangladeshi culture, Alpana is used to mark the change of seasons. This art form is mainly done by women and is a moment of celebration.
It's whatever the need is in their house, and they will prioritize, that's their priority. And I think it's like culturally a lot of Asian women are, they look after the house, they do the cooking and the cleaning. Not many men do much cooking. And yeah, and I think it varies in different cultures. In other cultures, the men might do a bit of work, but we're hearing a lot more over lockdown that it's mainly the woman who is that the primary carer, who is looking after the house. Even if both men and women are working from home, a lot of the responsibility goes on the mothers.
વિચારતા હતા
હું પેલા વિચારતી હતી કે શું છે પછી વાંચશું પછી ખબર પડે કે તુલસી વાળી તુલસી 50 વર્ષ.
હા આજ મેં છે ને આ લેસ્ટરના એરિયામાં લેડીઝને ઇન્ટરવ્યૂ કર્યું ને પૂછ્યું કે તમે તમારા પાડોશમાં શું કરતા છો ને એને કીધું કે હું જમવાનું બનાવવા માટે જલ્દી જલ્દી ઘરે પહોંચતી હોઉં ને એવું બધું કહેતા હતા ને પછી મને વિચાર આવ્યો કે તમે અહીંયાથી ઇન્ડિયાથી આવ્યા હો ને તમારે શું જોઈએ કે તમને વધારે અહીંયા સારું લાગે એટલે પૂછું છું કે તમને પાડોશમાં શું ગમે છે અને શું નથી ગમતું.
અહીંયા તો ગમે છે
કે કાંઈ રીઝન છે કાંઈ
સ્કૂલિયાનું ભણવાનું ને સારું છે એટલા માટે ગમે છે. મારા 3 છોકરા છે.
હા
3 ભણવા જાય છે.
હા
ભણવા માટે સારું છે એમ.
ને તમને દિવસથી દિવસ મજા આવે અહીંયા રહેવાની કે
નહીં રહેવાની મજા નહીં, મને તો ઇન્ડિયા મજા આવે.
ઇન્ડિયા કેમ મજા વધારે આવે? ઇન્ડિયા વધારે કેમ મજા આવે?
ઇન્ડિયામાં આરામથી રહેવાનું. અહીં તો ખબર નહીં,
ફરવા જાવ રોજ મળે,
ઇન્ડિયામાં બજાર જવા મળે.
કંટાળો આવે એવું બધું જાણવા માટે.
અહીંયા કંટાળો આવે કેમ કે પ્રોપર ઘર નથી.
પ્રોપર ઘરનો મતલબ
એટલે ઘર રેન્ટનું ઘર સારા નહીં મળે હવે બધા. પછી પોતાના બાય કરવાનો વિચાર છે પણ એના માટે
પૈસા
મની એટલી બધી નહીં મળે,
હા
એટલું બધું પ્રોબ્લેમ. ઘરની બહાર વેચવાનું ગમે અને ઘરથી એટલા ડિઝાઇનર હોય પોતેના અને સસ્તું ત્યાં વસ્તુ બધું.
I feel my role is part South Asian social innovator or communicator to first connect with first and second generation South Asian women in order to build and widen their community and challenge cultural norms, and part spatial practitioner to then aid the appropriation of a more representative housing or neighbourhood design. Moving forward, I want to zoom out and look at how this top-down council planning and bottom-up community of homemakers currently intersect. Thank you for listening.